All right, welcome to your fourth session. We're starting to launch ourselves into the series of 3 essays, which are going to end up developing into your proposal argument. And at this stage, we're going to do a really fun assignment. You're going to write a narrative argument. Excuse me. And narrative argument's particularly cool because it's the sort of argument where you take a reader into your experience using what the ancient Greeks called pathos as a way to convey to them the point of your argument, but you don't use a lot of logic. When you use narrative argument, what you're working to do is get your reader to live the experience from within. So that way they can come to the same conclusions as you have, essentially. So the real trick to writing good narrative argument is practicing showing, not telling. And I'm going to be returning to this like a mantra throughout the semester. But at this point, I'm going to do for you what I often do for students in my own classroom. And I'm going to read to you a narrative argument, a little one, that I wrote in my first book. That book is this one. It's called The Jaguar That Roams the Mind, an Amazonian Plant Spirit Odyssey. It was published back in 2008. But believe it or not, the action actually begins in the Islamic world. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read you a brief excerpt of an experience that I had far out in the desert in Morocco. And as you listen, I hope what you're going to experience is what I attempted to convey, and that is the feeling of being there, what you saw, what you heard, what touched you, what it smelled like, what kind of sensations ran through you, what it was like to walk down the street in such a completely unknown world and to face whatever waited you there. So really, what I'm trying to do with this writing, with this colorful, descriptive writing, is take you into the experience so that as you read it, it's like watching a movie for you. You're that drawn in. So let's see if it works. Okay, so I'm just going to start the narration, and my head's probably going to be down a bit and stuff like that. But let's see how it goes. Okay. Leaving the medieval city and heading south, we crossed the snowy Atlas Mountains, our bus arriving sheathed in ice at the summit. Thus we left the Mediterranean world behind, descending into a landscape of the purest stone and dust, broken only by the emerald green of palms and the road following the contour of the river. Journeying day after day into the Draa Valley, we watched complexions turn from light brown to black, and figures disappear beneath swathing. Across a landscape that suddenly opened like a shutter, the interior of Africa loomed. I wondered how such an absolutely flat landscape would have appeared to a young French shepherd from a terrain of rolling green hills and limestone outcroppings. Would he have thought he had come to the end of the world? Arriving in the Moroccan city of Tomgrut, we found that a deep blue parched sky attended each day, and nights were desert clear. Even the labyrinthine walled settlements were constructed of earth, blending into an endless expanse, as if all were either earth or sky. Nothing intruded on this isolation. No trees, no clouds, no birds, or human decoration of any kind. The women passed by in veiled silhouettes, and the men sat draped in their pointy-hooded djellabas in the coolness of the shade. Children would present the family dog to us as Bush. Dogs are given particularly low esteem in Islamic countries, and then mimic the sound of bombs falling from the sky. When I wrote in my journal, others passed the still hours chanting the Quran. Julie and I had come to Tamgroot to visit a Sufi library of medieval manuscripts. What we got was a brief glimpse at exquisite calligraphic and scientific works, observed through panes of glass, while the Sharif shouted in our ears, "Astronomical work!" or "Descendants of Muhammad!" and tried to hustle us along so he could go to prayer. To find that one could survive amidst such extraordinary textures of sound and color, even under the habitual glare of Islamic culture, was exhilarating. In the darkness of the mornings, I rose to the Fajr, the muezzin's cry of "God is great," agreeing with him that it is better to pray than sleep. The honeymoon abruptly ended one day. Roaming through the chilly, narrow maze of Tamgroot's earthen streets, I emerged into an open space with a dusty water fountain, also fashioned of mud. Encountering a small group of old men sitting in the road, I wished them good day. They returned my greeting. Walking on, I found, close by an opening in the wall, and looking in, I saw a green wooden doorway, carved with geometric designs, with an internal door in the shape of a mihrab. Typically, a mihrab is a niche set into the middle of the wall of a building in order to indicate the direction of Mecca. Surprised to see it ensconced like a hobbit door in the earthen wall, I walked toward it, and entering, I encountered a small mosque. Prayer mats lined the floor between the pillars, and a couple pair of babouches, those pointy-toed slippers, sat facing toward the center of the room. The place was strikingly austere, somber, dark. Drawn toward an adjacent doorway, I saw a well for ritual purification. A single beam of light illuminated the interior. The eternalness of the desert was in the room. It was the same well that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had drawn from, unchanged by the least movement of time. Standing transfixed on the threshold, I became aware that the old men were filing into prayer behind me. I turned. As they laid eyes upon me, the blue-eyed infidel near the sacred space, their faces blanched. There was much angry gesticulation and baleful staring. And I realized that I'd caused offense, not simply because I'd not performed the required ablutions or because I was non-Muslim, but because I was essentially unclean, like a pig, and needed to be driven away. My Aikido training abandoned me. Instead of declaring Allah Akbar and bowing on the spot toward Mecca, I extricated myself with apologies. It was a bad move. Going out into the street, I was quickly picked out by a small group of hostile schoolchildren and found myself surrounded by them. A little girl hefted a heavy skull-cracker of a stone and threatened to cast it at me, her face deeply ugly with the violence of our primate species. Looking into her eyes, I saw no reflection back. Through my adrenaline haze, I dimly realized that this experience also was as old as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Leveling my finger at the girl's face, I said no, and held her gaze with mine. The stone was lowered. Stepping into a doorway, I waited for the children to disperse. And then I walked shakily back to my hotel room. There, sitting on the edge of my bed, I felt the ancient hatreds of our own species. From the rulers of nations casting smart bombs to children hefting stones in dust-choked villages, the dark inheritance of intertribal aggression lay exposed like an archaeological stratum in this land. I had stumbled upon the fundament. This is as far into timeless biblical culture as I wish to go for the moment. Thank you, I concluded out loud. It was time to take evasive action. Okay, that's it. So I hope that as I read, you entered into the experience with me of walking down that street and encountering that ancient custom of stoning someone to death. And it wasn't with marijuana either. So, and from that, I hope you get the idea of the kind of techniques that you can use to draw someone into an experience where you're appealing to sight, to the color, to the shape of things, the sound of things, how things are textured, how you feel on the inside as you move through it, what you touch, the temperature, setting, associations, metaphors, all of these techniques of writing, all these ways of evoking experience are a really critical part of pathos. And when you get a handle on them, your writing will become much more colorful and interesting, not to mention more fun to do. So have a blast with your narrative argument, and I look forward to working with you on it this session. Okay, thanks for watching.